This chapter of Kengan Omega may have revealed that the inevitable war happening from the inside is absolutely unavoidable by our main characters. The main reason being the war itself is being fought over Ryuki and also Gaoh Mukaku, which is the major reveal of this chapter. But before we get into any of that, like, sub, I cover Kengan content all the time, and let's get into the chapter itself. Now, at first, we start off with Koga and the gang following the guide, and we get to see another part of the inside that logically shouldn't exist, and that is the underground layer. With this in context, the inside may have a lot of military forces or forces that would normally not be available if you were to look at the normal area of the inside and how big it is. However, a huge bit of information was actually given to us, and that was the fact that no one really even knows where the underground even came from. They assume that they are miners that dug this place up, but no one is entirely sure about that theory, which is a very big problem because the inside has been growing. And if the underground has been growing along with the inside, it means that they should still be miners there currently. But as far as we know, no one in the inside knows about who's digging in the underground and who's at the lowest possible layer because no one dares to go there. Further showing that there's more than likely another force in the inside that the citizens of the inside are not completely aware of. However, we then get to hear about the guide's backstory, or at least his claim to fame. Why is he competent as a fighter? It seems that he had taken down a huge Yakuza or Mafia family in the past, maybe all by himself, which would kinda explain the scars that he has. But the reason why we get this little bit of information is because Oma himself seeks to actually confirm the guidance's status in terms of, well, fighting strength with Ray. And Ray is the one who actually tells us this. This does mean that the guide is more or less competent in fighting, of course, I think I've said that before, which he kinda had to be considering that he guides people throughout the inside. There's no way someone normal would dare do something like that. However, it seems like the guide is in a rush to get Koga, Oma, and the gang to the disputed territory before the war actually happens. However, we have a very huge reveal in this chapter, and that is the fact that Gaoh Mukaku is in the disputed territory. Now, most people probably thought this was more than likely the case. However, we get to see Gaoh Mukaku face off against one of the high-ranking Worm members. But before that, before the actual fight itself, because the fight isn't actually long, we get to hear them talk about the fact that Gaoh Mukaku was killing a lot of Worm members. It seems like the Worms were looking for Ryuki all the way through the inside, and it was only in this area in which the Worm members were dying. This could be a very big sign that the current war that is being fought, that is going to get fought, is actually over the actions of Gaoh Mukaku and Ryuki, meaning that the war that the guide is actually trying to avoid is actually inevitable, especially with the last thing Gaoh Mukaku actually says after he defeats the high-ranking member, and that is the fact that Gaoh Mukaku wants to kill the Connector, which is huge. Will the Connector actually make it here and meet Gaoh Mukaku to settle this once and for all? Would be fairly interesting. However, Gaoh Mukaku doesn't look like he's in the best of shape. I've done a video on Gaoh Mukaku before in which I explained the fact that Gaoh Mukaku is probably not gonna be as strong as he was back in his prime. And we get to see that in full display against this high-ranking Worm member who he defeats with one hit, but seems to take a substantial amount of damage, and that the main reason he actually managed to take this worm member out is because he used himself as bait, clearly, which might mean that he may not be particularly fast or just wanted to deal with this high-ranking worm member in the most efficient way possible, but we see him cough blood after the fight. Now, why is this impressive and not impressive at the same time? A high-ranking worm member is fairly powerful. I don't think anyone can deny that. Even though we don't see Ogre in a fight, you know, we can assume he could probably kick some ass. The issue is that Shen and Yan thought Zaiji could kill Ogre and his other clone friend he had at the time. So if Zaiji was capable of killing not only him, but another fighter as well, but Gaoh Mukaku seemed to have, you know, not done so well, to put it lightly. Well, to some extent you could say he did pretty well, but it's clear that he's taking quite a bit of damage and is basically running out of time. It means that if you were to put someone like Yan, Gilbert Wu, or even the last Nico in front of Gaoh Mukaku, he would more than likely just get folded, or outright he would probably take a retreat, which would be the wisest choice. I don't see any evidence to conclude that Gaoh Mukaku could actually fight against the heads of the worm organization. So that's the chapter, and it was a fairly good one. Glad to see Gaoh Mukaku back in the story, and the whereabouts of Ryuki are still relatively unknown. Now here's my theory, which is around the end, but thanks for sticking if you have come this far. I don't think Ryuki's in the disputed territory. His GPS was last seen there, and Gaoh Mukaku seems to be leading the worm members to this location, but if Gaoh Mukaku just doesn't care about Ryuki at all, then maybe he's actually in the disputed territory. But chances are he might be hidden somewhere else, and Gaoh Mukaku is just using himself as bait to kill the connector with the promise of course, you know, Ryuki might actually be there. I think the biggest indicator of this is that we don't actually see Ryuki, we see a silhouette of Ryuki. Again, everything seems to be very odd on the whereabouts of Ryuki. If he was in the disputed territory, we would more than likely see him, but we haven't. But yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching the video, and take it easy.